Hi, and welcome to another episode of Kuntarkis. My name is Michael Yon, and this episode is Why War? So, welcome, Kuntarkis, and good question, why war? Well, how would you like to start us off, Kuntarkis?
Well, the best way to start this off is to explain how information is actually gathered. There's two ways of gathering information. You can do it physically, like, say, read a book. You can watch the news. You can listen to somebody else spreading whatever they're spreading around, and you can use that to say, believe that this is reality. But in truth, all of that is only an idea of what reality is. The only way to find out the real truth is to go back in a place called the void or the emptiness, or some even call it on this planet, the Acacia Records. Now, in our discussions, we've talked about fragments. Now, these fragments are floating in a massive, how would you say, void that is limitless in space. And it's all floating around. Some's intertwining with each other. There is voices you can hear, complete voices, like hundreds of thousands of voices. In fact, probably millions. But the funny thing is, Michael, it's not like a million voices is ramming itself into your head. It's not like that. You can just hear the voices so naturally. The power of knowing how to connect to that is your thought consciousness. When you develop your thought consciousness, which is living energy, you're communicating more so through your mind, not your human brain, your mind, which is living energy. That's what it's created from. You can think of a particular era in time from the past, and suddenly your consciousness will draw out those fragments. And you can draw out more to complete the picture. And what you see is what happened in the past in that particular era. And it is 100% truth, totally. You can't deny it. The interesting factor is all crime on this earth could be resolved within a 12-month period. Every crime that has been committed is within the void, the emptiness, or the Acacia Records.
Oh, you mean like what do they call it? Unsorted, unfinished crimes, unresolved
Yes,
crimes.
unfinished, unresolved crimes. Even the ones that were resolved are there. Because every thought you have as a human being on this planet, and there's now, 7.5 billion, I believe, roughly, all those thoughts are transported into that void, and they are floating in an emptiness continuously. That's the human past. Every universe, and there are trillions of them, and there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands that have actual intelligent life forms. And the universe, as we've spoken many times, is so broad, you would never, ever reach the other end probably in a billion lifetimes. It would be nearly impossible. That's how big the universe in the totality has become. When you train yourself, you can bring forth particular information from that era and then express it. And that's how I do it. I'm a very, very fortunate being to be able to do that. I will say one thing about my people, the Nakarons. They have learnt over the 27 million years of their own evolution to understand all their past lives. And it's like if you looked at, say, a sack, and you opened that sack up and you saw trillions of very fine little atoms all mingling and being thrown back and forth. And then you put your hand in it, it's like going into a rabbit hole. And you can draw out memories of your own past life. And that's what's inside of every human being. It's called your cellular memory. And that's how I bring forth what I believe true reality without question.
It's actually your skill at being able to do this going into the void. I'm sure that skill relates to your skill to be able to access and remember all of your past lives as well. It must be very similar.
Very similar. Yes, very similar. So that is the way we're going to do, say, this episode. I'm going to keep looking out to what I've actually extracted. So sometimes there might be a small gap. So I can actually formulate something that needs to be formulated, because it might sound confusing. And I don't want to sound confusing, because if I do, that means it's going to confuse the people listening to it. But understand this. Every single human on this planet has exactly the same ability. We all have over 4 quadrillion cells. And within that cellular structure, we have what is called, as I mentioned, a cellular memory of every past life. There are civilizations that can bring forth their past lives to help them. That's what we as a species need to do. We need to grow consciously and break free from our really ingrained conditioning that has become our belief systems. That's what prevents us from going beyond consciously in who we are.
What was it that what was the quote that Yakis Kardis often said about past lives?
He said, once you begin to learn the real meaning of reincarnation, you begin to learn all about who you are in the essence.
Wow.
There are many different terminologies, by the way. You can say it all different ways, but that has a strong meaning. It's like saying, okay, look at this book, Michael. This book says all about reincarnation. You open it up and you start reading. That information is going into your cellular memory right at that moment. When you put the book away, other things go into that cellular memory. When you pick the book up again and finish it, all that has gone into your cellular memory. Now, that's not saying that book is true, because it's written by somebody else. But if you develop your thought consciousness to a point where you can travel back in time consciously, and you can pull out by extracting the information from the void and formulate it through your thought consciousness, you could write your own book. You could write your book about every incarnation you've had. Can you imagine what that would be like?
Yeah, I imagine that a lot of people that go down that path might have started off with having dream experience that felt like, no, that was a past life. That wasn't just some made up dream. That was something real.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to go back 928,000 years of human time. That's when the real essence, let's say, humanity as a species began their evolution. I'll explain very briefly. I know it's been on other episodes, but we have to tie it together so it all makes sense to the actual listener. 928,000 years ago, several massive ships came into the orbit of the Earth and transported just over 87,000 Nicarons onto this planet. Not to say take over the planet as a species. This planet was chosen because of the negative aspects of that 87,000. They did not want to change. They wanted to keep their old habits, their old way of life. They didn't care about conscious growth. The other 95% of the Nicarons, absolutely, they wanted to change. And they had. They had been evolving that 87,000 on Nicaris for a long time. They even had their own city, as I explained, built by the other Nicarons. They had everything they wanted, all the food, everything. But they would not allow themselves to grow consciously. So a decision was made through the High Council. Find a planet. Put them on that planet without technology and allow them to sort themselves out. Maybe, one day, maybe, in the long future to come, we may come back to our brothers and sisters and join again. That was the word. The problem was, when the 87,000 were placed here, they took over. There were Neanderthals here growing through their own evolution. They had their own language. The Chirons naturally had Sanskrit, which is a universal language, right throughout all the universes. Eventually, they mingled, and what happened was a species called human came into existence. The funny part is, if we step now, let's say between 3 to 5 million years prior the 928,000, there were at least 12, maybe 13 different alien civilizations that had come to Earth to mine, to take all the minerals, including the gold, including diamonds, including jewels, emeralds, all that type of stuff, but mainly also chemicals like copper, brass. They found the Earth abundant. The problem was they were starting to become greedy. Now, there were ones called the Armagods. The rest I'm not 100% sure of. They came from all different universes. But the Armagods, they were a non-threatening, or they would not fight wars. But they would bring their slaves down from another planet, which they did. And they brought a race of beings down here, and there was one called Nasitea. Now, the interesting thing about Nasitea, he looked like Arnie, but slightly taller and more robust when it came to strength. He was a brute. And he also had a negative attitude because he wanted the power to rule everything.
So he came as a slave.
He came as a slave to planet Earth from the actual the Armagods. Now, the interesting factor is several thousand years had passed. Naturally, reincarnation. He was born through reincarnation here and there and there and there. And he became what is called an emperor. He built an empire. He got all the other slaves to fight off all the aliens. And the other 12 left. The Armagods left, but they came back. And they tried to persuade Nasitea to work with them. Now, during that time, the Armagods were watching what was happening on Earth. And they noticed that Nasitea was warring all over the planet. And his armies grew and grew and grew. But he wasn't satisfied because there were still armies out there that were defeating him. So he decided to communicate with the Armagods. And they said they can help him. They would bring live dragons from a planet called Doricea down to Earth to work with him. The Armagods would naturally pay those dragons whatever the exchange was. So they came down and they worked for Nasitea. They did everything that he asked. The dragons defeated the other armies, slaughtered them. And Nasitea became the most powerful entity on this planet. But he didn't stop there. The interesting thing about war, Michael, all wars in that time, all wars from 928,000 years ago, right up into this present moment, was created normally either religion or kings and queens and emperors and dictators, or narcissists, because you've got to be a narcissist to create a war. That's the sad part. Now, if we go back to Nasitea, that's what he was doing. He was a narcissist. He had no feeling for life whatsoever. He had at least 72 women that he was getting pregnant and having children. He had hundreds of children, hundreds in a lifetime. And he spread his seeds, and they took over all the other empires so they could control everything. Now, if we reflect back to the moment here now, that is what the criminal elites are doing. The cabal. They are trying to control everything. They want to literally wipe out 50% of humanity, create all these cities all over the planet where they can control every single person in every one of those cities. They'll bring in the digital passports, the digital ID currency, or whatever they call it. It's just an illusion. The sad part, if humanity agrees to allow themselves to be dictated to in that manner and take away natural currency and have digital currency and have all your information, they will also take away everything that you own. And you will literally be paying rent. You'll be held ransom to everything that you need in life will be a rent. And that is 100% true.
And you'll have no privacy as well, because they'll literally be able to have the technology to not only read your thoughts and every actions and every dream that you have, they can influence you that way as well, can't they?
Absolutely. And you know what's really sad? That's all through the 5G. No one really is waking up to it unless some of the people who have literally tested out that type of technology. And the interesting thing about 5G, you put graphene oxide, like say a teaspoon, on the bench, and you turn your phone on, and it's a 5G phone, which is roughly 97 hertz, something like that, and you just roll it around, and you'll see it all gathering like it's a magnet. It's radiation. Every time you put it to your head, you're radiating and mutating brain cells. And if your body doesn't have the right nutrition and the right balance to, say, compensate and create new brain paths, new brain cells, then you will have cancer, tumors. And that's 100% guaranteed. The reason I can say that, in one of my actually 3 of my lifetimes on Nakaris, I was a scientist, a doctor also, but a scientist. And I used to, research the entire chemical structure of an Acharon body, male and female. So I could enhance a program and present it to the High Council to show them how a species in their body actually function, even to go as deep as the cellular cells or the cellular memory. And that's what I achieved back on Nakaris a long time ago. So I do have an understanding of how any form of species body actually functions. There are things I don't know about the human body, of course, like everyone. But chemically, if our body is not given the right nutrition, it will literally not function the way it's meant to. And that way, it becomes inundated with toxic poisons and will not function at the level it should. And radiation is the human's worst enemy, especially when it's negative. Now, going back to Nasitea, as I said, used the dragons. And I've said this before in another episode, but let's complete it so the reader fully understands this episode. He decided to put out a command. and have every single dragon slaughtered. So the dragons fought back, but because of the type of technology that even the armor gods gave them when they came to, say, firing great fireballs and things like that, they created massive amounts of them. So they wiped out the dragons, slaughtered them, had them all piled up in all different places, all around the place, and burnt the bodies. The only dragon that survived because he saw what was happening. He had an ability to visualize and see what is to come. And his name at that time was called Tang Yung. That's Y-U-N-G. Now, Tang Yung, he was a very, very big dragon. And yes, he did get hurt fighting off Nasataya's enemies, not his enemies, his troops. He went to the Himalayas high up and he found a cave under a mountain and he sealed it off and he stayed there until he perished. To this very moment, his remains are high up somewhere in the Himalaya mountains that was sealed off, and snow has now covered it for thousands of years. In fact, hundreds of thousands of years. The interesting factor is Tang Yung has reincarnated many times since then, back on his planet called Doricea, and they're known as the Doricans. They are no longer dragons as they were. They have evolved because of the Nakarons, who have helped them evolve consciously. And they have learnt through a form of meditation to change their cellular structure through their thought consciousness into being humanoid. And many now don't even go back into being a dragon.
Yeah, they used to shapeshift back and forth. They had that skill.
Yes. But one of the reasons why they're changing completely into humanoid and not using that facility to become a dragon is so when their babies are born, they are born as a humanoid, not as a dragon baby, where they then have to teach it, which takes so much effort to become a humanoid. So that's an interesting form of evolution for them. We as humans, we need to do the same. We need to resolve our emotions that have become negative belief systems that we pass on through genetics, our DNA, onto our children. Now, the interesting factor, if we go now from 928,000 years through human history, we can understand why there has been 157,000 violent, bloody wars where over 19 billion humans have perished, whether it's through mass murder, rape, just plain war slaughter. Then we have to ask ourselves, who is doing it and why? The easy answer is, we just decided to have a war. We wanted to get more land, take their gold, take their jewels. That would have been the typical answer. Religion, all about control, all about belief systems. They killed hundreds of thousands of women and men, warlocks, so-called witches, and yet most of them weren't. The religious people back then just got carried away with their own power and wanted control. And if you went against them, they literally had you put to death. Simple as that. Now, reincarnation, you have to learn to understand the reality of that truth. It is real. You can argue, you can do what you want, but the end of it is reincarnation is as real as the breath you breathe in every moment of every breath. If one person just lived once, it would not make any sense whatsoever. How would you learn to deal with all the things that you've done in that life? Many are saying, when you reincarnate, God, he turns around and purifies all the mistakes you've made and you start again. That is a load of rubbish, 100%. I have seen hundreds of different civilizations through my existence as an Acharon over the vastness of the universe. And reincarnation exists on all those planets. So it exists here. Now, if we go back 928,000 years and start to see the wars, they are all dictated by dictators, by narcissists, by emperors, queens, kings, whoever you want to put into place. And a lot of the times, the two different kings will meet and they will say, let's have a war. So they create a war to kill off people, not just the soldiers, but naturally, a lot of the peasants, they end up dying also. So they have a war. It's all a pretend. And it's been happening right throughout the last nearly million years. And the same people, Michael, are reincarnating each time into positions of power. That is one of the reasons why kings and queens of the past breed within their own family line. And that's why they have so many faults.
Kuntarkis, I wouldn't have thought that inbreeding was necessary, considering that incarnations aren't incarnations separate? Like, what's the relationship between reincarnation and bloodlines?
Well, okay, reincarnation is just a natural thing. It doesn't matter, who you're with. Say if you decide to have intimacy with, say, your sister, right? You're in a position of power with your father and your mother, so they have children. So the son has intimacy with the daughter, and they have children. Then they have children. Then they have children. What you're doing is you're mixing a blood that doesn't match when it's in family lines. There is always problems. And the more you do it, the more problems occur. And if you went back in history and found the fragments of kings and queens of the past in this last million years, you would find that they have always had problems, whether it's illnesses, deformities, or mental issues. It will happen.
So what was the reason that they would do it?
The reason? To keep the bloodline pure. That was their thoughts.
Yes. It's actually not really smart, is it?
No, it's not. Of course it's not. But the other thing is, they knew by doing that, they would then take over the king's job. And then they would have children and they would take over the king's job. And those children, say 2 or 3 generations down, the father that was a king, say 300 years ago, is now suddenly reborn through that same bloodline. That's why we have such narcissists on this planet today in people like the elite criminals. They are all doing the same thing. And they are all trying to totally take over humanity and control through so many different ways. And that's why the wars are created. Now, I don't know if we spoke about this, but this is just an example. When the First World War was created, it wasn't created by one country. It was a negotiation. And the funny thing was, what was the Prime Minister in England through the Second World War, or the First World War, was it? I can't remember his name. I haven't got it. Do you remember by any?
No, I mean, I could look it up, but
was
just
it Winston
going,
Churchill?
Oh, maybe it was, yeah.
Yes, Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill, in the First World War, got with the Germans, got with the Japanese, like, say, the hierarchies, and other countries, America, all that. And they planned the war, right down to the point who's going to win and how it's going to end out. The Second World War was done exactly the same.
So you could say it was scripted.
Sorry?
You could say it was scripted for the benefit of whoever was going to benefit.
100%. Now,
Wow.
nobody's ever gone into this. And when I found the truth of it, I smiled because I knew in my own being that it was true. But I couldn't prove it only until just recently that I've now gained the ability as an Acharon to go back into where the fragments are to extract that truth of the past. And what I discovered, which was really interesting, you know Pearl Harbor,
Mm-hmm.
right? That was attacked by the Japanese and they killed, I think I'm not sure, about 1,100 to 1,700 soldiers, that's women and men, and, nurses and doctors and all that type of thing, and civilians. And they attacked Pearl Harbor. All of that was a plan. Even the Americans knew it was coming, and they've actually proven it, but nobody wants to talk about it because they're scared it might come out. There were people that said when the evidence was given, say, hey, look, there's something funny going on in the Pacific with the Japanese. And they just said, oh, no, that's fine. They're only on training or whatever they might have said. They knew that the Japanese would attack Pearl Harbor. And I'm saying the American military and politicians knew it. But they didn't do anything about it until after it was done. And then America got involved in the war, the Second World War.
Like using it as an excuse.
Using it as an excuse to come in and eventually wipe out Hitler. Yet Hitler had all this technology because he actually got the alien craft that crashed. And he learned through his scientists, who were very smart buggers, how to create stronger metal that would take the bombshells from the American or whoever tanks. And they created longer barrels, more powerful explosions, and they were starting to win the war. But then they planned it. They even planned all the attacks from the ocean to the land where all the Tommy guns were, the big machine guns. And they killed thousands and thousands of soldiers, and they just kept running to die. And they were ordered to. That was to kill off people. That was the whole purpose of the Second World War. Everything they told us was 100% a lie. It was not the truth. All these people in high-ranking positions from all different countries met in Switzerland to discuss it and plan it. That's what's really sad.
So you're saying the biggest thing that they wanted, because they would have made a lot of money and all the rest as well, but the biggest thing that they wanted was to just depopulate.
Depopulate? But, well, they did. Over 69 million people. And you say to people today, I've said this, and they said, no, you're wrong. Only about 11 million. I said, really? I said, you have no idea what you're talking about. It's actually even in a book. You can look it up. They're now giving out that information. But it's over 69 million people were slaughtered, murdered on purpose to depopulate and also to destroy cities so they can build new cities. Now, this comes to a very important factor, and you've probably watched the Gaza thing. And they brought out a video, which is from stopwellcontrol.com. They brought out a video that certain people, through interviews, are actually telling the truth of what actually is occurring. And the funny thing is, one family mainly is behind all the murders that have occurred in Gaza. And we spoke about this. They removed all the soldiers that were guarding the fences, the most sophisticated fences you would ever find in the entire world, the Israels. They had the best defense system when it came to the fences on the borders. They literally pulled out all their soldiers and they allowed Hamas, I think that's Hamas or US, I'm not sure. They allowed the Hamas to come in. And they just came in, shooting people, blowing up buildings. They were setting up dynamite or massive explosions to blow up all these buildings. And you got to ask yourself, why would they allow that? Why would the Israel government allow these people to come in and start killing off all the people in Gaza. Percentage-wise, there were more children slaughtered than adults. And that's a worrying thought.
Mm.
But the interesting factor is, how would I put this so I don't offend? The interesting factor is who's behind it and why. Why are they doing it? Why Gaza? It is a religious site. And these, how would you say, satanic people, and that's what they are, satanic, they believe in that evil. And they literally do everything in that coordination when it comes to numbers and places. It seems to fulfill their own so-called prophecy. They are going to blow up all of Gaza, kill as many people as possible because of one family line who have been on this planet for so long it's not funny. And they're called the Rothschilds. That is really frightening.
Gosh, yeah.
And what they're going to do, Michael, is totally flatten Gaza, then clean it all up, and they're going to build the headquarters for the New World Order.
That's the spot that used to be called Jerusalem?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. So what was that? The new headquarters for the New World Order?
Your New World Order.
Wow.
And that's where they will run the world.
Wow.
That's where they're going to run the world. And it's all to do with their negative energies. That's the sad part. Until we wake up and realize the mass conspiracy by governments worldwide, the mass conspiracy of say, all the elite that are involved, the cabal and all of them, all these families, like the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the BlackRocks, all of them. They own everything at this time. They run the stock markets. They own everything, every food store, every clothing shop, every petrol station. They own everything.
And public figures as well, don't they?
They what, sorry?
Public figures, like we see public figures being interviewed and they're lying, and they're lying. Why are they lying?
Yep.
Well, they're owned by them as well, aren't they?
100%. Every government, 169, I believe, roughly, have all agreed through the World Health Organization to do exactly what the World Health Organization, the UN and the EDA want them to do. They even got, like in Australia, they even spent, Albanese, whatever his name is, he spent over $400 million of taxpayers' money to put through the referendum. And putting through the referendum is a very interesting factor. It's a war in itself. It's one of the massive terrorist conspiracies on the planet in what they're trying to do. They want the yes vote. And once they get the yes vote, it's got nothing to do with the indigenous people whatsoever. They'll eventually destroy them. The idea is to take the power out of the Constitution and put in new laws where they can dominate and control through communism in Australia and the world. That's what it's all about.
By unlocking the Constitution.
Yes, and destroying it, dismantling it, and putting in their own constitution. That's the real purpose. But getting people to actually look at that and feel from their hearts, not from their conditional logical brain, because it's just highly conditioned in fear from every single incarnation, from every war that a human has been in. That is all illusion that's been created. And the end result is we are becoming dummies to the hierarchies because they believe through Satanism that they are supreme beings. And that's the sad part. And they're not.
Considering you've just said that, you kind of opened the door because they're actually, as far as I know, thanks to you, they're also puppets themselves, these high elite because they're being influenced by the reptilians.
Absolutely. The reptilians are controlling, yes. And there's been many things. You remember David Icke. David Icke, I haven't heard about David Icke for a while, and I'm very sad to maybe what's going on. But he explained all about the reptilians, the green reptilians, and they're a very negative race, and they can literally shadow a human because they literally work in a vibration that's slightly different to our third dimensional vibration, which is a frequency. And it's like, I've explained this, it's like a radio station. If you have a long dial and you turn it, you get a station. It might be whatever, like, 13 BC. That's a stupid number, but it's just an example. Then you pull the dial over further and it might go to 77 CD. Then further over, it changes frequencies. But you get static in between because there's nothing there as a frequency. The frequency hasn't been, how would you say, corrupted. Now, their vibration is a frequency, and it's slightly different to ours as a human frequency. That's why we physically can't see them. Sometimes we can sense that there's somebody around us. Right? Now you take Obama. Obama has one, and he's been controlling Obama for a long time, even through his presidency. You can tell it on his face. You can see his face shape-shifting every so often.
It's because these are physical beings. They're using technology to phase out of our physical, so they can literally see and witness all of our physical reality, but
that's right.
They're walking around phased out of it. So they're in a physical reality as well, where they can see us, but we can't see them. That's
exactly right, because there is a slightly higher vibration, but it's still a very negative one. And even if you look at the fourth dimension, right? In the fourth dimension, you can have spirit world, and you can have hundreds of different levels of consciousness. So when you pass from your physical life, depending on the type of life you've actually led, you enter into a spirit world. And you might be at level 10 or level 1, which is below that is the astral world, which is another vibration. And the astral world, right down the bottom, is the sludge of humanity. And every universe, Michael, has a spirit world.
And an astral world.
Or an astral world. But there are civilizations that actually don't have an astral world. They literally just have a spirit world, and it does have different levels of consciousness. And as you grow consciously, you enter a different higher realm after you leave your body in that spirit world, which makes it easier for you in your next incarnation. So incarnations are 100% reality. And all the reincarnations that have occurred over the last 928,000 years have shaped our world to what it is today. And it is all about the last chapter to dominate the species that exist here, which is humanity. And that's how we have to learn and understand that reality. That's the sad part. Now, you have some questions you said you'd like to talk about.
This word keeps popping up in my mind while I listen to you, which is karma. Can you talk to us about how karma relates to all of this?
Okay. The funny thing is, before I talk about the one on Earth, I want to go just to say Nakaras and the beings called the Nakarons. Now, they've never really had karma. It's never really been an issue because they've never been like an aggressive race and violent race. Yes, they have fought hundreds of wars, but it's not, how would you say, it's not their creation. They are the guardians of many universes. They have taken it upon themselves and have been appointed by many, many hundreds of different vibrations, which is universes. And they now help keep the balance of life on planets. And yes, sometimes they're called to go to a world because they are being attacked. And yes, they have wiped out many aggressive alien races as if they've never existed. And the reason they do that is so the people who are growing consciously on those planets, or the beings, can grow consciously, can have a peaceful life without fear, without the threat of being destroyed because of what exists on their planet. And most of the time, those aggressive aliens either come to take the technology or rape the planet of its resources, or even take over the planet as their own. Now, hundreds, and hundreds, even several thousand have been helped over the many, say, thousands of years of an Acharon's existence. And they have helped bring the balance into those civilizations. If they find an aggressive civilization and they're caught, they are literally not tried. They immediately are vaporized. Not just vaporizing their flesh body, they literally disintegrate the actual memories of every incarnation that aggressive alien has ever had.
As in, that spirit literally gets destroyed.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And it never ever can be reborn as a being. The life of the energy goes back into the pool of life in that universe because it's drawn magnetically into that vibration. That's how the universes work. So we don't get corrupted by everybody else's universe when it comes to energy. It's all kept separate. People may think that that's barbaric. No. What's barbaric is what is happening on Earth today, where millions have perished because of the toxicity that's within all the vaccines that have been injected into the human bodies. There are people dying everywhere, but they're all keeping it a secret. There are people suffering massive strokes, massive cardiac arrest. They're growing this strange, phenomenal species of soft, whitish type tissue within the veins of their legs, causing blood clots, pain, and then having heart attacks. That's been happening for the last several years. And the cause of it are all the pharmaceutical companies. And who owns the pharmaceutical companies? The elite. Now, if you start to put 2 and 2 and 2 and 2 and 2 together, at the end of it, you see the actual real truth to what's occurring on this planet. These people are so evil that they literally practice Satanism. And they literally sacrifice babies. They literally rape babies. They rape toddlers. They rape young children. They rape adults. And they sacrifice and eat their bodies because they believe by eating certain organs, it's going to keep them youthful. There are actors, very nasty actors, that have created companies that create creams from certain genetics, certain organs of those dead children. And as I said before, over 8 million children go disappearing each year, and it's getting worse and worse. And they're not being found. They go into the sex trade. The sex trade in Australia is huge. The sex trade in America is massive, absolutely massive, and all over the world. That is not conscious growth. That is not the truth of life, of existence. We as a species should be able to live life on this planet in a loving, peaceful manner. We should be able to be balanced within ourselves and not have this massive, ugly conditioning that we have within us that literally gets transferred to our children by the time they're 5 and 6, even younger. they are already showing the same signs as their parents, if not one or two. And as they grow up into adulthood, they take those negative traces of DNA from their parents and simply become a clone. The fluoride that's in water, which is highly toxic, that coats your pineal gland at the base of your brain, inside about the center of your head. Once it's coated, you lose all connection to the reality of spirit world. You don't have the visions of creativeness anymore. You don't even know how to use your imagination. You become a drone. And that's what the elite want to do to us, is create drones, create armies of soldiers into robots, half human, half robot. So everything that's being created is for one purpose only, to eventually get to that point and dominate humanity 100%. And by that time, humanity will be far too weak to even fight. And the only way to resolve the issue that we have on this planet in Australia, I'm using Australia as my home base, is to rise up and say no more and take back our power. I mean, let's be honest. If we vote in a government, truly, in truth, they're there to help make our lives easier. Every person in this country should have a home. Every person in this country should have one or two cars. Every person should have a place where they can say, this is mine, without the pressure, without the stress. But we don't. We have more stress in our life today in trying to make enough money just to pay off our mortgage. And we struggle for 20 or 30 years trying to do it. And that's just ludicrous. That's not the way to create a society with balance. And I've spoken about this in one of our episodes about Earth's monetary system. We remove the monetary system. We remove greed. We remove the satanic ugliness of our society and vaporize it into nothingness. We remove wars, greed, murder, rape, violence.
Some people might be thinking, well, that sounds good, and why couldn't the Nicarans just come and do it for us? And we have already spoken about that before, but that would be a happy ending to mention at some point.
Where do you drop off responsibility to what's occurring?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. You know, Nicarans are coming. You got to understand the Nicarans, they've been around for 27 million years, and they are now the guardians. Now, there is one, my brother, called Kanag. He has an army, anything from 5 billion. 5 billion soldiers, right? 5 billion.
Indestructible soldiers.
Yeah. And he goes around all the different universes that are called upon. And he keeps very busy trying to bring the balance back, trying to get people to become involved in the Global Agreement Treaty, which is universal. Once a planet becomes involved in that and signs the agreement, they are protected under the Nicaron agreements, the Nicaron ways. And they introduce ways to make that society flourish, absolutely flourish. All governments are removed. Governments will no longer exist. Billionaires will no longer exist. Because if you study the billionaires on our planet today, truly, not just look at the crap that's actually put in front of you and say he or she does this or he or she does that. How fantastic. It's all lies. It's all cover-up. If people read my book called The Dream Assassin Volume 1, they'll come across a character by the name of Sean Crowley, I use that character to show people what these high-ranking people are all about. And behind the scenes, he runs the entire world's terrorist groups. He pays for it all through his technology.
Because he's a popular politician, isn't he?
No, he's not actually a politician.
Oh,
Sean Crowley, he owns one of the tallest buildings. That's how I created it in America. And he's totally into technology when it comes to computers. And he sells computer programs and the new types of computers. But what he doesn't tell the companies that buy his technology is once you install their technology and their programs through software, they take over your entire company and you don't even know it. That's why all the governments of this world today are joining and doing exactly what the World Health Organization wants them to do, and the United Nations and the EDA, whatever that may be. They want all your information. They want to be able to control your thoughts, all your actions, and they want to even make you do things that you normally would not do. They will be in total control of all your awareness and even what comes out of your mouth and what goes into your body. And that's not really being an individual, is it? They want to wipe out individuality. They want to wipe out all religions. In fact, let's just go there at the moment. I noticed that there is a person that is writing all these negative things about Jesus. And the latest one is, did you know Jesus could have been a sorcerer? And he literally controlled all the people through his sorcery? Did you know Jesus was actually violent? And he used to bash people up and all that? And I've been looking at this and having a great laugh. When you go back in the past, Michael, say to Jesus' time, and you can pull out all the fragments and see the whole truth of what Jesus was. He was an alien from Nakaris. He came here to share knowledge and wisdom to help species grow beyond their own conditioning, to take back the power and not allow these hierarchies to control every motion, every thought, even back then. But naturally, the Kabbalah were very fearful of Jesus, and they spoke to Pontius Pilate, and they had him murdered. So isn't that interesting?
I guess.
So really, yep.
Oh, we were saying about planets signing the global agreement and then being covered, looked after by the Nakarans. And I guess where you're leading to is that we're just not there yet when it comes to us as a whole being ready to say, yes, we want this. Of course, most of the people would if they knew what was going on, but the leaders and such are like still having so much influence that
Yes.
It's just not the right time yet, is it?
Yes, most people believe that the governments would not actually harm the people. They're there for a reason. But if they look behind the governments and see how they act and how they speak and the things they do say, the people would be shocked, completely shocked. And we have had not good governments since 1974. That's for sure.
In Australia.
In Australia. Yep. And the governments now, as I said to you before, are following all the wording of this one person called Klaus Schwab's or something like that, who actually is a very sick man. He's a pedophile. And they're pushing to legalize pedophilia so they can rape babies and toddlers legally. I mean, how would you feel as a parent knowing that the governments are going to allow this?
Yeah, one of the sexual orientations, I guess it would be called, would just simply be pedophilia. Like,
yeah,
that's just one of the ways people. Oh gosh,
absolutely, and that's ludicrous because it's all to do with Satanism. It's about control. You turn an entire population into Satanism to believe in satanic rituals, wow, what an ugly, perverted society you would actually create, because they are so perverted, sick. They're a disease, and that disease is like cancer. It needs to be wiped out. That's the only end result. There is no other result. You can't put them in prison. They get released after 20 years or 30 years. They go and do the same thing. They keep causing negative actions, which creates a reaction. Nicarons on their planet, 417,000 light years from planet Earth, they don't even have a police force. They never have. 27 million years. They don't have murder. They don't have rape.
Can we go back to how Earth needs this idea of karma?
Well, okay, now when you come to karma, karma is an interesting word. It's what you do unto others will be done unto you. The cause and effect syndrome. If you go along and say bash a person up so bad, you kill them. Well, you've now created karma. Now, you die, this person you killed is reincarnated, and you reincarnate basically the same time. That person grows up, you grow up, they may live on the opposite sides of the world, and yet something leads them to you, and they kill you in a different way or the same way. Or a war is created, and they've got you in their sights, and they shoot you, and you're dead. That's how karma works on this planet. It's a bit ridiculous, but that's actual fact.
But it's like it's an energetic pull, isn't it?
Yes.
Like you're entangled. You're literally because of experience, you're entangled with each other.
Absolutely. Now, if that person that was killed originally saw you and all they wanted to do was kill you, and they didn't know why, because they don't know how to bring forth their memory of their previous life, and they said, hang on, I wasn't brought up that way to think to kill someone. I'm not going to do it. And they stop. That karma then is dissolved. That's how simple it is. Don't do unto others what is done to you. Don't think on a negative level what others are thinking of you in a negative way. Send love, unconditional love from your heart. Learn to open up. The most precious gift beyond imagination is your heart. And when you connect with your heart, you connect with your mind, and you connect directly to your soul. And that's where imagination grows 1 billion times fold. And that's what you send to others who are negative towards you. You say, I send 1,000 times fold in unconditional love to this person, to that being. And when you send that, you let it go. And what you'll find, there'll be a balance. And even the negative thoughts will stop. Because when people think negatively, Michael, those thoughts, especially if it's constant, those thoughts come to you, and it can create so many disharmonies in your life. Whether it's an accident, like, you might have a car crash, you might fall off a cliff, you might break a leg, you might damage a hip. How do you know that that's not someone that you know that despises you so badly that they send negative thoughts constantly to you? And it creates that situation. Mm. And if you find that out and you send negative thoughts back to them, you're both creating karma. And if you do find out, just send them love from your heart. When you grow in heart, satanic energy cannot touch you, cannot harm you. Even if you walk down the street and there's a madman with a rifle and he shoots you, it doesn't matter, because you see you can't die. The only thing that will drop dead is the vehicle that you're within, that was born from your mother. And once that body disintegrates, because it'll rot and go away, right? The spirit of who you are is in spirit world. And you'll reincarnate again, probably hundreds of times or thousands of times. That's what reincarnation is all about. To reincarnate is to learn. And you reincarnate through certain people, so you learn the lessons, whether it's negative or positive or both. So karma is with you. And the more you become a loving human being towards yourself, you become a loving human being towards others. And you are no longer ingrained with a belief system that is not allowing you even to bring forth one of your greatest gifts, imagination, or to feel from your heart, not your negative emotions when you make decisions, because it's a negative outcome. But when you come from your heart, it is a positive outcome, a positive energy. So that's basically what karma is, slightly in the nutshell.
Very good. It's nice to hear you say, to be good to yourself, to be loving to yourself.
Oh, it is, mate. I look at people like Bill Gates, and that Klaus, and I look at all those families like the Rothschild. They are so lost, so down in consciousness, it's not funny. They don't even have a heart to feel, because they are all involved in Satanism. It's what's got them. And there are people who are like, I knew this guy. I'll give us an example. I knew this guy. I won't mention names, but I knew this guy who was running a healing organization, and he learnt from some of the best overseas, and he came eventually to Australia, and he was teaching a certain type of healing. Sadly, he connected with negative energy by starting to put negative spells on people, because he was losing something that was very precious. He was losing to believe in his own heart. So he became negative. His health started to suffer. It got worse. He was a womanizer, so bad. He would project negative energies onto women to try and get them. He taught other people that he felt he could trust. Those people, even today, are sending negative energy. Like, what do they call? Like, there's a word you call when you do like a mantra, where you constantly say the same things and you project it directly to that person, which can cause negative outcomes for that person or persons. Yet these people are supposed to work with the light when it comes to healing. They have no intelligence whatsoever. They have no self-awareness whatsoever in what they're doing when it comes to creating karma. So to me, I just send back love. And I also say, allow them to experience what they have sent, so justice can be served, because justice brings balance.
Wow. Wow.
So war, Michael, I'll say this at the last part. War is a creation of any species for a negative outcome. And every war that has been created on this planet was a negative outcome. You can't go killing your brothers and sisters where you come from the same species. That doesn't make any sense. And yet all these people who have been doing it, if you did a psych test on them, you would find they are a narcissist or a person who has a lot of hatred inside them.
And it's like you said, you said for the ones that are causing all this, it was actually simple for them. They wanted such and such, and so they cause a war for that to happen. It's yes. Simple in their minds, isn't it?
That's right.
We'll simply, halve the population. We'll simply do this. We'll simply do that. It just happens to be on a scale that affects so many.
let me say this to you. I got to just say this so people understand the complications that are here. I took my son to a doctor just recently because he had a lung infection. And I mentioned certain things about air conditioning, and as I spoke to you about it, and naturally he ignored me. I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm just a layman. He has no idea what I have done in my previous lives and how I can bring forth my previous lives and bring that same knowledge through. I also said to him, well, what can we do from this point? He said, no, I'm going to get you to go to the what's they call those people that take blood?
What is the word?
Yeah.
Blood.
I've just lost it.
Because
Okay.
it's a special word like thrombose, something. What is it? Phlebotomist.
No,
Isn't
no,
it a
no.
phlebotomist? No.
No, but it's like pagologist.
Pathologist.
Anyway,
pathologist.
Yeah. Okay.
Pathologist.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tongue twister. But anyway, he went along, and this lady drew out the blood, and I said, "Look, since you're drawing out the blood, can I actually also ask to have his blood tested for other things?" And she said, "Like what?" I said, "Like graphene oxide." Why would graphene oxide be in his blood? I said, all from the vaxxers and also shedding. She had no idea what I was talking about. And she said, oh, they wouldn't do that. Is that because I said the government's told all you people not to do this, just like doctors? And she just looked at me and never answered. I will say this to people, not just Australia, but the world. Many have doctors and they believe in them, and that's great. But then try this exercise for your own truth and stop being ignorant to your own reality because you're fearful of what you might discover, because you will. Go to your doctor and say you want a blood test. And they'll say, why do you want a blood test? I want to know what's in my blood. I want to know everything what's in my blood. Like what? Well, are there any strange chemicals? Because, they don't want to mention the words. Are there any strange chemicals that are self-assembling? What? I want my blood tested. They won't do it. You know that? They will not do that, Michael. Nowhere in the world will they do that unless you find someone who will say, yes, I'm curious. Now, you have this organization called stopwillcontrol.com. You also have this other one, I can't remember her last name, but Anna Maria, who's a fully qualified doctor in America, and she has done some research, and she has literally found 100% beyond all doubt, all vaccines that were injected into people contain nanotechnology, which is a creation of graphene oxide and self-assemble. That is scary in itself. Why would a pharmaceutical company that's supposed to be giving you a vaccine for COVID-19, which sounds like, a Secret Service type word, COVID-19. Yeah, that's interesting. Why would they? It's called control and elimination of so many people. Nanotechnology grows within your organs, within your blood, within every particle of your being. And it eventually will take over your body. It's a proven fact you will no longer be human. And that's the other point. Find out if your blood is irregular. Find out if the blood cell is round and shaped perfectly, or are the cells rigid or rigid around the actual drop of blood? And if they are, it means your blood, your DNA, is being changed by this technology.
Considering that you've said that, I think it would be good if you were to say, I think Anna Maria was actually, she knows about systems. Can you talk about the systems that they have for actually removing that from people as well?
Well, yes, they are doing a lot of experimental things at the moment and research into that area. I can't give you the names. All I can say is look up Anna Marie and it should bring up her website. And if it brings up her website, that's brilliant. But also look up Stop Wheel Control. They also have different people doing research, and they have all the information that you would need to actually help you maybe eliminate this issue over time.
Mm.
What you got to understand is each vaccine has basically 40 billion particles. In a short amount of time, let's say 12 months, it goes from 40 billion to maybe 200 billion or 300 billion, even 400 billion. That's not good, because that means it goes into every organ of your body. It goes into your corpuscles where your DNA is protected, and it literally changes your DNA structure. And once that happens, you are no longer considered human. And if you're no longer considered human, then who owns you? Because you have no idea who you are. You're no longer human. The people that own you are the people who put the injection into you, the companies, the pharmaceutical companies. And they can patent all of humanity and do whatever they want with you. And governments won't fight it. That's the truth.
Yeah, because the governments are puppets. They're a part of it. They're all
puppets.
It all kind of goes up the pyramid to the top, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes. And also, we've spoken about this before, Michael. I'll just mention this again on this episode. You were saying about, like, why don't the Nicarons come down? Well, they are. Anything between 140 to 180 years of human time. You got to understand, there are worlds that go from 417,000 light years to 916,000 light years to 1.9 million light years to maybe 2.5 billion light years from planet Earth.
Gosh.
And within all of that, there are trillions, and I mean trillions of universes. And that's no joke. There are also billions of planets. And there are millions of planets that have some form of life. And there are several billion planets that have real intelligent life. So everything is evolving in its own evolution. So it's not that easy to say, oh, look, we want the Nicarons down here now to wipe out these so-and-sos, these perverted, sick people, so we can start growing consciously. It's going to take 140 to 180 years.
Because that's the right timing.
Absolutely.
Approximately, yeah.
Absolutely. And I'll explain something a little bit more about that in a sec. But can you imagine? No, I'll go back to the other one first. Sorry, because I was going to say that, but I'll leave that go for now. The beings that will come here will be Nicarons, will also be Doricans, and more than likely some of Cadiz race from Uplata, which is their planet. They're a really cute little alien being. And Cadiz been with me for many, many years. Now, the thing is, they're coming as ambassadors of their own world. And who will also be with them will be Yakis Kardas, my father. Also Kanag, but also Kuntarkis, which is me. But also Kalusha, which is my wife here on this planet in this incarnation. But also our son, Nakris. We are coming in our own evolution of being reborn into the Nicaron world. And we'll be coming in that time factor to this planet. And I've said this, and I'm going to say it again. When humanity sees the power of a being that's 19 billion years old, that's a B, not an M, 19 billion, and he waves his hand just once, and through his thought consciousness, he will activate 417 million streams of energy in the instant and vaporize 417 million pedophiles off the planet, and they will never, ever exist again. anywhere. It will simply be cleansed energy back to the pool of life. And he will remove all the cabal and all the ones who have created the disaster that humanity is within right now. Now, people might say, oh yeah, sure. I'm saying it because my heart, and that's where I come from, it knows the truth. I know the truth. Yes, I'm physical because I'm a walk-in. I took over this body on the 29th of August, 1969 at 11:11 p.m. in a place called the Alexandra Hospital in Brisbane, which is just on the outskirts. The interesting factor about all of life is living energy. When you learn that living energy is a reality and you have over 4 quadrillion cells within that field of energy and has been with you throughout every incarnation, and you grow in self-awareness, you begin to understand the evolution of your own existence, and you have the heart to help others, and you have the knowing in knowing what to do. That's why Father Yakis Kardas, with the 4 of us, are coming. And the planet here will change instantly, because there'll no longer be the crap that is within society. All the pervertedness will be removed. So the rest that are here will have the ability to actually grow consciously, and their pineal gland will be cleansed so they can accept that form of knowledge, that form of understanding. And in time, over a 2 or 3 year period, all greed will be vaporized. All monetary systems will be vaporized. There'll be no more wars whatsoever. And all those that created will be dissipated into nothingness, never to return. So this entire planet, with the species called human, will have the moment to realize that a new evolution of humanity is about to begin. And that is the knowing the truth, Michael.
Very good. Duh, duh, duh. Thank you so much, Kuntarkis. That's absolutely brilliant. Wow, what do I say? Yeah, thank you. This was a nice long one that we covered with Why War. Very good. If you'd like to know more about Kuntarkis, he has a website. It's etcconsciousness.com. There's on that website there's mention to his books and also the lectures that he can do. Also, you can find his email there, which is kuntarkis@gmail.com. We also have a website. We also have a Facebook page, Kuntarkis. And if you'd like to contact us, please contact kuntarkis@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. My name is Michael Yon. Oh, yeah? Yeah.
And before you go, Michael, I just want to say to you personally, I want to thank you because I've known you for many years now. You're my friend. And I want to thank you for your support as an interviewer, as a friend, in creating all these podcasts. I should say all these episodes, because we've got probably over 100 now in such a short period of time.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Kuntarkis. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. All right, that's it for now. My name is Michael Yon, and stay tuned for more.